I'm Michael Matthews, and today I'm going to talk about the Spectaculars role-playing game, which is by Scratchpad Publishing. And the first thing we talk about it is I'm going to actually talk about a different game made by the same people, because these two things exist in a space that I don't see very often in role-playing games. Now, Spectaculars is a superhero role-playing game that is a little different than most other superhero games that you've played. Their previous one, Dusk City Outlaws, is one that I've done kind of a bigger review for. But Dusk City Outlaws, I have found, has taken something that I never see in role-playing games, but is very common to the board game. Now, for example, this is the Dusk City rulebook. Looks like any number of things that you'd see for board games, and some of this does carry over to Spectaculars. For example, if you were to throw down a bunch of rulebooks for board games as well as a Spectaculars book, people would not necessarily know that that's a role-playing game book right off the bat, which is good because it's a lot shorter than most role-playing game books. But when you're playing Dusk City, when you start off, the nice thing about it is set up to be a very simple one-shot where you get people together. They haven't seen anything that you're about to do yet, and you sit them down and you pull from the box a couple things. The first thing you do is like, okay, you're going to choose a thief of some sort, like a criminal that you're playing. And then you pass out these cards, and these cards are the different cartels, and they've got these really great art, and they pass them around, and the players are like, ooh, because there's like multiple copies of these. They're like, oh, this looks cool. What does this do? And they're looking over this, and then you also pass out, okay, here's your specialty. Here's, grifter, masquerader, tinkerer, whatever that is, and they go through and they put those together. So while the players are doing that, looking over these really cool things that go in their hands, so there's not one book that everyone has to use, you also just kind of pass them over a thing with the dice and the other stuff they need in it, where there's another thing in there that is for the GM. While they're doing that, the GM can then look through the adventure that they want to do that evening, because you can literally sit down and play it not taking any time at all. If you have someone not show up for a session, but you want to play something anyway, but you don't want to play your main game, just grab Dusk City. So if I'm the GM, I just pull out the judge's rulebook, and I look through, there's all these different things, take up a couple pages while the players are picking theirs. I can go through here, I pick out my game, and then we're good to go. And it is designed from the literal box insert itself to be a perfect one-shot game that everyone can sit down. The GM has to do no planning. The players get to look at these cool things. It goes in their hands. They don't have to really look over a whole bunch of stuff. So this is what they started with. This is the first game they had. And the system is actually pretty similar between the two. But then we get into making a superhero game with a couple of those same ideas. Now, a lot of times the problem with superhero games is, well, creating characters in most superhero games can take a while. It can be kind of a huge pain in the ass. This one is a bit different. You sit down and you tell your players, okay, what are we going to play? And you've got these setting books. And these setting books are kind of like little workbooks and stuff that you might have if you think of stuff you'd see in schools. And you go, okay, are we doing Explorers of the Unknown, which is kind of a X-Men Avengers style? Are we doing Eldritch Mysteries? Do we want to do magic user stuff like that? We're not doing Clash Among the Stars. That's the cosmic one. This gets unlocked in the about 3 or 4 into the Challengers of the Unknown. Or are we doing Streetlight Knights? Do we want to do street level superheroes to start off with? And you talk over what you want to do. And let's say they choose Streetlight Knights. Well, you just go through here and you start tearing off pages of this, because there's bits of legacy games in Spectaculars. Well, you go through and immediately you can go, okay, so far as your super team, do you wish to be mentors and wards, or do you want to be a neighborhood watch? And then I look beyond that. Then we get into the archetypes, and then go, oh, let's say neighborhood watch. You go, cool, you can pass that out. And then we go, okay, you can be you get to these other sheets that are your archetype. Vigilante, Street Sentinel, Soldier of Fortune, and they go through and they pick all those out. You can just kind of pass them out. They have time to look through it. Then the GM gets a single page that has the adventure on the front and the back, and while everyone's doing that, looking over what they want to be, you are able to take a look there. And then you're like, okay, well, we got to get you powers and stuff. So the first thing you do is you go to the box and you pull out The common powers. These are the powers that go into literally every single different one of these. You put these, and then you also grab the powers for the Streetlight Knights, and you shuffle them together, and you then have a power deck that is all the common powers, all the ones for this particular setting book that you're able to go with pretty immediately. And it gives you a wide range of powers that fits the theme. Like, for example, you throw someone into Streetlight Knights that has the magical powers, it's going to feel different because that's something that actually does happen. Well, then you got to go with identities. So they'll end up picking somewhere between 1 and 3 of those. And that there's a hero point that makes it different there. But then you go identities, and you pull out the standard ones, things like actor, doctor, model, police officer, psychologist, reporter, and then you grab the 25 that are specifically for Streetlight Knights. Activist, bartender, bodyguard, paramedic. You shuffle those things together, and then you pass everyone out a couple of those, and then they choose one of the ones they have, and those give you like your skill percentages. The powers give you your powers. You make up the names, they fill out a couple things on the sheets, and you are ready to go. Like, as long as it's not session 1, from sitting down and deciding we want to play this, through creating the characters, you're there. Session 1 is a little bit different because when you sit down, I mean, you've got your rule book for the game, which, as you'll notice, isn't too thick, relatively small, but then you've got something super cool. Then you've got your setting book, and the setting book is a whole bunch of different things about the city. Like, you literally start with the basics, and you have to decide a bunch of things about the world in which you live in. So this one, a lot of stuff about the city. What decade is it in? Is it a real world? Have we made something up? What makes this different from any other city? And then you go through, and that will actually unlock something else. Is there a super science lab where you get a whole bunch of the different things? You go to a different page, and then you make decisions there. Is there a crime syndicate? Do the same thing. Is there pariah ghettos, or an area where you have mutants or something like that have been, or aliens, or whatever you want it to be, that are kind of over there? And when you do that, you go through, and as a group, you make decisions about what it is that you're doing. If they decide to go, oh, hey, we want to have the pariahs, and they look, here you go, well, pariah is 19, so we just flip over to the 19th one, and then we have decisions to make. And we go through here, we read through it, and we make our decisions. Are these genetic mutations, androids, aliens, supernatural ancestry? Do they have specific powers? And then there's always other, because you can always end up adding something else. So as a group, you create a city that is, a world that is unique to the game that you're playing. And this is one of the really big strengths of this game, because mechanically, and we'll talk about that in this bit, it's not that difficult. It's a fairly simple game in a lot of ways. And this setting book is one of the things that sets Spectaculars apart from other comic book games. When I grew up, I was a Marvel kid, and I read a lot of different comics. Marvel was my favorite because a lot of times the personal aspects was more important than what I saw in things like DC. But then there was the Valiant comics, and the Valiant comics had a different feel. Exo Manowar, Bloodshot, the Harbingers. It felt cohesive in a way that Marvel and DC didn't. Marvel and DC were these giant sprawling things, and Valiant kind of felt like there was a single heart. It's a little more closer to the way we might see the MCU today, because there are less sort of chefs involved, and there is sort of more of a guiding force. It feels cohesive. And that was something that I really loved about the Valiant universe. And to be honest, this game, in certain respects, feels less like a superhero comic, and it feels more like you're creating a superhero company, or a comics company. Because you could play Streetlight Knights for a couple different adventures. You play your street level people, but then you decide, hey, let's check out that Explorers of the Unknown. Let's go kind of Avengers X-Men. Well, you've got your world, and you know the tone. You just pull out the other cards, you shuffle those in, you do that, you create new characters, or possibly bring your character from the Streetlight Knights over. Your street-level superhero is maybe now running with the Avengers-style group, because that happens quite a bit. So as you create these, as different characters kind of pop in back and forth, it starts to feel like this complete thing all of you are creating. It feels like, and there's things that help you make it feel like it's got a history. So as you're putting all of this together, it becomes yours and it becomes different. Like, we chose Streetlight Nights when I ran this, and I ran this online, which is the reason why this stuff hasn't been sort of torn out yet, because I did this last summer. We chose the Streetlight Nights. We chose this like gritty world where the supers were all vets who'd been abandoned by the government. Like, partway through, someone's like, "Hey, we basically made the game underground," and I was like, "I'm 100% for that. That's awesome." And this is where it can get a little bit wonky, because the first one was a bank robbery, the first adventure that's in there, and we ended up making it work out in some cool ways, but we had to go against some of the baked-in assumptions of this game, and it can feel a little bit at odds with the basic idea. Like, the basic flow of most of these adventures is there's a fight, you do some investigations, and then there's another fight. With some hero aspiration turmoil stuff that kind of goes, that the players can bring up throughout it to dig more into their characters. We didn't find it too hard to go away from that, but what it did require me to do, was to essentially really open up what was in those books, which is frankly how I tend to run things anyway, but I was trying at first to play it kind of rules as written, like approaching the game the way the game felt like it wanted to be approached. And what I found for myself and for the people I played with, we opened it up, which is, I mean, honestly, my Dusk City Outlaw games get a little more open than that's supposed to be, which is great. And it's only a problem if you're someone who has a hard time deviating from what's already been put down in the books. So you have these interludes also. You've got like the adventure that goes through, and one thing that's always supposed to be character driven is you start off after the first session where they get to learn it. You start off with an interlude, which is basically the opportunity for the players to have their aspiration or their turmoil, like the things that like make them a better person in life or the things that cause them problems. They get a scene with that, and when they get a scene with that, they get these. These are continuity tokens, and continuity tokens are in certain respects the most exciting thing about this game. Besides, this game also comes with a really wonderful insert where all the stuff is in it, and it's just very easy to find stuff, and it's great. But those continuity tokens do two things, one of which is fairly standard, but not as exciting, but useful. You can do a retcon. Now we know something else about what's going on here. Maybe I've had an interaction with this villain before. It gives me a little bit of a bonus. I'm going to throw that down, and now that's a thing. And that's fine. There's plenty of games that do that. The cool thing about it, though, you can use it to reference a back issue. Kind of like the old comics where it's like in like Captain America 27 back in 1960, whatever. And the great thing is, those comics don't exist yet. You're not actually going back to something you have played before previously. You're going to a different comic. When we created it, we actually gave it a year, we gave it a month, and we gave it its own title. Certain characters, like, oh yeah, I had a 4-issue special in 1968 where my character did this kind of thing. Or these things happen, and you start to build up this past and keep track of all that stuff. If you play it, build up your comic company. Like, suddenly you know that, oh yeah, this character had this stuff way back then. Maybe you decide you want to go back and play some of that. Create your own. It's very possible. But it starts to make it feel real and kind of organic, and like it's not just something that began the second you sat down. When, I mean, in a lot of respects, it started the second that you sat down. So that is something, and you can have these other interludes sort of throughout, which can give them hero points as well. The problem is, when you do those, it's supposed to advance the villain's plan. And hero points are really useful for a couple things, like for rerolls and some other stuff. But it could feel punishing to a group that has a hard time with the timer. So what I did is I just kind of threw that out. I didn't worry so much about the fact that we have these scenes with your aspirations and turmoils outside of that original one that your character wants to deal with their personal life. We're going to let that happen, and I'm just going to kind of choose how far along we go. I didn't keep them on a strict timer, but I would advance, because a lot of times you have, like, here's the villain's plan. They're going to do, if players spend too much time to get to the bank vault, they'll have already gotten away through the sewers, or they'll give you a couple different options of what that is. Well, now they've gotten away through there, and maybe a little longer to get to them, they've gotten to the hideout. Then they've got to find the hideout, and then maybe they're already getting ready to leave. Like, the players are able to show up like at the last minute. So I just sort of chose what felt interesting on those ones instead of being stuck to, well, Steve had his interlude there because he wanted a hero point, and we wanted to explore a little bit of his personal life. So yeah, we're gonna make it this stuff maybe so hard you fail. And that inclusion in the game, while we found that kind of the way it was written didn't work for us quite so much, it does a better job than most superhero games of making it feel like the home life of these people are important, because it's very easy in a lot of team superhero games to forget that. Now, it's not my favorite type of that. I mean, Smallville is my favorite role-playing game, period, and that is all about the non-superhero stuff. I mean, you can have, if you're playing a superhero game, you can have plenty of superhero stuff happening, but it is much more about your relationships and stuff outside of just going and beating people up. So that is a small thing that's fairly easy to hand wave if you want. You could stick directly to it, but a lot of these have a pretty tight kind of timeline associated with them, and I think opening them up is good. So when the game starts off, like usually there's a fight straight off. And in this game, what we found, and this was complicated by the fact that we did it online a little bit, but the system for this game is simple. Unfortunately, because everyone is thrown into it at the same time, they don't always have the same ability to grasp it. Dusk to the Outlaws has the same system, almost, exactly. The difference is, when you go through it, everyone has their legwork scene. Like, you have your scene where you're trying to do stuff, and everyone gets these individual rolls to see, here's how the system works. Because at its basic, and they even give you multicolored dice for it, you just take two 10-sided dice, and they even give one that's a 10 to 100, and then the other one that is 1 to 10. And you roll that dice, you have a percentage. And you'll ask the DM, well, do I have any drawback or advantage because of what's happening? And they'll tell you, yeah, take X amount of advantage dice, which you can get these little boons, and the boons help you do stuff. And take this many disadvantage dice, and there you can roll drawbacks. And the drawbacks will go ahead and cause problems for your character, and very often you're doing some of both. And that's it. You're looking at a percentage. If you are hitting somebody, you're looking at your power. Well, what's my percentage of doing this? Which depends on where they slot it in the sheet. And that's either it succeeds, if it's just a straight up success, if it's below that, or if it's below that and it's like damage, you do that much damage. You have something with like 80%, you roll 66, you do 66 points of damage. You roll 3, you do 3 points of damage. And really, as far as like the system goes, besides spending boons and disadvantages, which the GM can walk you through, it's fairly simple. It just, in here, it gets thrown at the party kind of all at once. It also has like cards that you use for initiative. There's one with each of the team roles, because the players are able to go through and go, oh, this week I'm going to be the artillery, someone else will be the booster, we've got someone else as the striker, and these give you some special abilities that you can choose and switch these each week, and these have corresponding cards that are their initiative cards, and you've got other villains and stuff, and they just shuffle those, and you just throw them out, and here's the order people go, and sometimes you're able to move stuff around, and so that's really simple. It keeps all of that easy, it keeps it physical on the table, you can see it, nobody has to like keep it in their mind, all that stuff I think is fantastic. So we just found it got thrown a little quickly at you in this game. Once they kind of know how it works, though, it takes almost no time. The actual rolling and everything else, they just grab the dice, roll. Yeah, I got a 37, and I got 2 advantages and a boon, or the two drawbacks and a boon. One of those each will cancel each other out. What happens with drawback? And there's other little things that you can have. Your powers can have power stunts. You can put time tokens on them for a cooldown effect. I'm going to use this for, like, my energy blast, for example. I am going to make this use an area attack. Then I've got to throw 3 on here, and then I can't use that power for 3 turns. There's things you spend hero points for. Like, all of this stuff it's smooth, it's quick, and it works. So this is a game that is incredibly good for getting people together and quickly building a superhero campaign. You have a lot of depth to the way in which you start building out this sort of comics company, because you can switch between our Streetlight Knights game, which is really cool, but then after a bit, we're like, hey, let's do the Explorers of the Unknown. But then the Explorers of the Unknown opens up these alien stuff. Well, hell, let's head into space with Clash Among the Stars. And by the way, there's been some stuff with like some Eldritch stuff, like magic's getting thrown in there. Well, why not pop over to Eldritch Mysteries and then kind of hop back and forth? And it's like when you were a kid, or maybe now, we go to the comic store and we pick up, like, of course I'm going to pick up my run of X-Men, because that's what we read in the 90s. But I'm also going to grab these other different, like Silver Surfer. I'm also going to go through and grab Daredevil, or I'm going to grab whatever, and you can hop back and forth on these stories and even bring Daredevil in with the Avengers style, or bring one of the X-Men over to the street level, and all of this stuff works. And it's quick and it's simple, and players can get to the point where they actually have a number of different characters that they have played, and they can choose, so we're going to go with this particular team today that we created when we did Challengers of the Unknown. I am going to use my other character today. And someone's like, hey, what if my cosmic character kind of came along with it? And you can choose to make all these team-ups happen and kind of go on any of the adventures. So overall, if you've got someone who is an early GM in particular, I would recommend this 100% completely. Like, boom, grab it. And I'm going to tell them you're going to want to start to probably break the really tight kind of constraints of the adventures. But if someone's kind of nervous about what to do, these campaign pads, which, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that should be stolen from Scratchpad Publishing games. The form factor of the boxes, like the stuff inside, the way you can hand stuff out and start going immediately. But in Spectaculars, as much cool stuff as there in here, with the powers and the identity and how all this stuff goes together so you can go very quickly. The continuity tokens, which are amazing. Hero points we've seen in other stuff, but these help create a campaign on the fly for GMs who might otherwise be nervous about diving in. All the time I hear people say, like, I don't know what to do, there's so much I have to do, and then they do 1,500 times the amount of work you actually need to do to run a game. So, instead, this takes away the need to figure out what's happening tonight. And it doesn't make it a big module, you gotta do a whole bunch of stuff. You just go through here, and you get to Breaking the Bank. And they look at this scenario, and they got a little bit of stuff here to read, then it's like, what happens? And they can just follow that until they're comfortable with the game and the rules. And then they can make alterations, and they can start to open it up and do more things. And I went through and checked. If you play every single week of the year, there's about, between all of these things, which include some crossovers, some other stuff, there's like a year's worth of gaming here. And then it's very easy to create something on top of it. So the benefit of this system there, and the benefit of these setting pads, is that it can walk someone through creating a campaign. It unlocks new character types. Ooh, hey, that detective thing that we met last time, that was cool. Oh, now that archetype is available. I can either basically turn that NPC and make him into a character, or I can create my own character that's kind of like that now. So on these things, there's all these different ones in here. If you could do this, you could do this in almost any other game. They sit down, it's all quick, it's bite-sized, and you can go through and say, hey, are you worried about running a game? Take one of these. And when you start to feel comfortable, break it open. Do new things. I would happily go through and do this, and then what I would do is really start to kind of go off on our own, and then use maybe the new one as an inspiration. See what does it unlock something different, could kind of like take things out of it. Like, oh, here, we get this alien thing here. Well, I'm going to add that in and maybe do something else with it. But it gives a really strong base for someone who's not sure what they're doing, which I think is super cool. So, like I said, a lot of the stuff I think is great. A lot of it, I think it's got technology, like sometimes literally the way stuff is put together, and sometimes what you have here with the mechanics, but the setting pads definitely are something that would be great to see for other games. Like I said, steal it. Someone else do something along these lines. Help new people get involved in your games instead of having this ton of stuff they've got to go through where they feel like I have to make an entire world before players can step foot in it. This is a nice way of organically creating all of that. So, I enjoyed a lot about this game. The problem I had, mechanically, it's not terribly difficult. I don't mind that much. It can feel a little samey on a rolling point of view, but all the other things happening made it interesting. So I was like, that's fine. Because I do like how systems work. And this system, it's workable. It's fine. It gets out of the way in a lot of respects, and it goes quick, which is what it does well. For me, when I played with the Gauntlet. And it's one where people sign up. It's an open table, so people kind of come and go. And what I found frustrating because of that is we lost that sense of continuity. Because the first 4 weeks where we did the Streetlight Nights, these vets who were working in the city, who were kind of against these government things that were causing them problems, it felt like this incredibly gritty, interesting, lived-in place that then the next month we had different people. Like one person was still there, but the other people didn't have the background that we had built up. These characters did not gel in kind of the same way. They didn't know the tone of what we had created. So it started to feel a little like it wasn't quite fitting in the world. And not just that, oh, this one's higher adventure, this one's maybe a little more comedic. It just felt like there wasn't a connection between this idea that we started with, that the superheroes here are made by the government, and it's this oppressive thing. They're gonna have drugs essentially that they have to take, like medicine, to make sure that they don't reject organs or stuff that the powers have put in. Then to something that was a much more flashy style of game, and it could have fit really well if we'd had the same bunch of people. So that comic company started to feel a little fractured because we were getting a group that was not all on the same page. And you can't really put someone on the same page as 4 sessions when no one from the original is left. They may know, like, oh, this is kind of what you did, but they don't have the feel of it. So for me, in a group that's continuing, I think it's a fantastic game. If it's a group for kind of like just one-shots here and there, for what I like in games, and that is development of characters, development of NPCs, creating a world that we as a group create together, and that has a cohesiveness to it that feels real, that feels like it is a place that lives and breathes. In a group that is open table, or if I'm having lots of people coming in and out, like if it's a few people, it'd be fine. But me personally, I would not like that. I know other people who have played it who actually had no problem with that. But that is not only a specific thing for how I like to run games, but it's also a specific thing for an unusual style of gaming. If I have pickup groups, Dusk City Outlaws in a heartbeat. It's boom, sit it down, we play. Maybe it's your Thief from last time, but everything is really a very heist-based, sort of Victorian era, a little bit of fantasy, definitely some stuff from Dishonored in it, feel to it. Like everyone pops into a similar space because comics have such a wide variety. And then you go back to the stuff that you create in that setting book, which is also amazing. You can lose that. So I highly recommend this game. It has got, like, it's one of those things, you pull it up, everything comes out of the box easily. It doesn't look like other role-playing games unless you have Dusk City Outlaws. It has a quick system that gets out of the way, and all the stuff surrounding it does incredibly cool things I don't see other places. So, that is Spectaculars. Both that and Dusk City Outlaws are highly recommended. Have yourself a great evening, and I will catch you another time.